Ever wonder what it's like to be the ultimate loner in a fantasy world? Meet Haruka, a guy with 0 friends, a bag of random junk, and a mission to survive. From goblin battles to magic mishaps, he's about to turn worthless into unstoppable. Are you ready for a wild adventure? Let's dive in. The story begins with Haruka, a boy hiding from a group of goblins who are busy preparing their meal. Trying to slip away unnoticed, Haruka accidentally snaps a tree branch, instantly drawing all the goblins' attention. He bolts, running as fast as he can. But as the goblins close in, Haruka smirks. He suddenly leaps into the air, revealing his trap a hidden pitfall. The goblins tumble straight into it, just as Haruka planned. He tosses off his hoodie, proudly admiring the trap he dug earlier. The scene shifts, showing he's been living alone in this strange world for a while. Cut to Haruka in a classroom, casually reading a manga during lunch break. He calls himself a loner, not just in this world, but in the regular one too. He divides his classmates into categories: the delinquents, guyers, jocks, nerds, class reps, and everyone else. Naturally, he doesn't fit into any of these groups. Just as he rests his head on his desk, something strange happens. A mysterious circle starts glowing beneath him. Chaos erupts in the classroom, and Haruka opens his eyes to see the mayhem. At first, he's thrilled to see a magic circle, but then his face falls, remembering the harshness of other worlds. He tries everything, opening the door, windows, even kicking them, but they won't budge. Desperately, he hurls a chair at the door, realizing it's all a trap. As the magic circle starts teleporting his classmates, Haruka scrambles into the ceiling's air duct, only to be caught by the circle's reach and teleported anyway. Haruka finds himself in a strange white void. He expects to meet some overweight king or a beautiful princess, but instead, an old, confused-looking man with a white beard approaches him. Haruka assumes he must be the god of this new world. A massive wall of skills appears in front of him, and as Haruka gets ready to choose, all the valuable skills vanish, leaving behind only useless ones. Frustrated, he browses the leftover skills, growing more and more annoyed. He complains to the old man, who calmly waves his staff, shattering the skill wall. Suddenly, all the worthless skills pour into Haruka's status. He's then transported to a forest, where he finds a magical bag. To his surprise, the bag has unlimited storage. It's filled with random items, which Haruka calls leftovers. He picks out some gloves and a cloak, intrigued by their look. Haruka tries to check his status window, but instead, a message pops up instructing him to roll dice. He does, landing 2 MS. Panicking, he assumes the M means minus and dreads the worst. But when he checks his status, he discovers one of his skills is maxed out, meaning the M stands for max. Relieved, he continues exploring and notices 2 additional skills: living alone with no friends and unable to make friends. It dawns on him he's destined to be a loner, even in this new world. Determined to build his own house, Haruka ventures deeper into the forest. As the underbrush thickens, he grows uneasy, knowing he's defenseless if a monster shows up. He digs through his bag and finds a special lens that allows him to see the stats of everything around him. Haruka begins scouting the area, collecting mushrooms, which he stashes in his bag. Eventually, he finds a lake, happily drinking its water, and stumbles upon a nearby cave. Haruka tiptoes in, apologizing to any monsters that might live there, but finds it empty. Grinning, he claims it as his home and uses his temperature magic to light a fire before checking his stats again and drifting off to sleep. On day 2, Haruka wakes up, pleased to find no monsters attacked him overnight. Starving, he whips up a beef and mushroom meal, which turns out to be surprisingly tasty. After breakfast, he wonders what to do next and begins collecting supplies for his shelter. Suddenly, he senses movement. 2 goblins are nearby. He checks their stats with his lens, then readies himself for battle. His wooden stick glows with magical power, and Haruka launches himself at the first goblin, knocking it out with a blow to the head. The second goblin charges, but Haruka easily dodges and blasts it into a tree with magic. As the sun sets, Haruka reflects on his first victory and stumbles back to his cave, exhausted. He cooks mushrooms for dinner, checks his stats, and happily notices he's leveled up. By day 3, Haruka is sick of eating mushrooms for every meal but forces them down anyway. Stepping outside, he starts hunting for meat but finds nothing. Frustrated, he practices his magic instead, running so fast it feels like teleporting. He also sharpens his sword skills, easily defeating 2 goblins. Feeling confident, Haruka thinks he can take on 3 goblins, but when he faces them, they look stronger than expected. He wisely runs back to his cave, planning to hunt goblins by day and train his magic by night. On day 5, Haruka successfully takes down a goblin with a single strike and installs a door for his cave to keep out intruders. Later, he spots a rabbit and chases it for some much-needed meat, but just as he catches it, he hears a noise nearby. It turns out to be his classmates. Haruka hides, using his clairvoyant sight to check the surroundings. To his surprise, all the different groups from his class are scattered nearby. Among them is his crush, who's with the class rep group. Memories of his awkward past with her in first grade flood back. He almost approaches to say hi, but stops himself. He's chosen his path alone, free and determined to conquer this new world his way. Haruka quickly dives into the bushes, trying to hide from his friends who heard a noise and are now searching the area. One of his classmates grows suspicious and starts moving toward the bushes. Haruka feels his heart race, but just as the boy is about to check, a rabbit leaps out, startling him. Relieved, Haruka watches the group leave. The boys later gather near a river, and Haruka quietly listens in. They begin talking about inappropriate fantasies involving the class rep. Haruka, instead, thinks fondly of his crush, admiring how she's always managed class affairs since elementary school. Haruka then notices the boys have captured a student named Tanaka, who they've been using like a human search engine. When they finally leave, Haruka sneaks back to his hideout. He cooks mushrooms for dinner, yet again, and checks his stats. He's dismayed to see his loner level has increased, likely from avoiding his classmates. However, his overall skill level remains at 3, hindered by his lack of mastery in both jack-of-all-trades and dummy skills. Frustrated, he uses his Master of None skill, which allows him to transform his cave into a spectacular room. Though he still can't stay focused on one task for long, he sits down to eat his poorly cooked mushrooms. On the 7th day, a commotion wakes him up. Rushing outside, Haruka finds a group of nerds battling goblins. He activates his lens, analyzing their stats, and quickly realizes they're at a higher level than he is. Ready to jump in and level up, he suddenly senses danger. 2 more goblins are creeping up behind the nerds. Remembering his good times at school with them, he leaps into the fight, and with one strike of his stick, he takes down both goblins. The nerds are stunned to see Haruka there. While heading to Haruka's cave, the nerd group thanks him for saving them. Haruka welcomes them inside, and they're shocked to see a stunning, well-decorated room hidden within the cave. They marvel at the transformation, complimenting Haruka on his space. He offers them some juice and casually asks about the other classmates. Oda, one of the nerds, begins sharing his experience since reincarnating into this new world. Some classmates were amazed by the new reality, while others broke down in tears. Oda explains how their group was the first to figure out how to access the status window, while others remained frozen in disbelief. Just as things seemed to calm down, a group of goblins suddenly appears, ready to attack. Panic spreads among the class, including the delinquents and class reps, but the nerd group is the only one that steps up to fight. With the help of the jocks, they charge in and defeat the goblins in one swift move. Afterward, they all gather near a river to seek safety from further ambushes. The nerds take charge, using their isekai knowledge to help set up camps, while the class reps take over cooking and catching fish. For a while, everyone works together in harmony. However, after a few days, the class reps grow tired of their responsibilities and decide to leave. The vice rep tries to reason with them, but they ignore the plea and walk off. Soon after, the delinquent group follows, and their departure causes others to scatter as well, leaving the camp less united. From that point forward, only the class rep, the nerds, and a few others pulled their weight. The rest of the classmates just lazed around, while the nerd group was left to battle goblins on their own. Oda then told Haruka about the charm and puppeteer skills the delinquents had picked up in the White Room. The nerds grew suspicious, noticing the delinquents sneaking out at night to fight goblins, leveling up their stats. When the nerds overheard them plotting inappropriate plans involving the class rep, they immediately went to the vice rep and explained everything. Upon hearing this, the vice rep decided it was time to level up herself. She approached the delinquents who had bad intentions for her, but in an instant, the tables turned. The delinquents were on the ground, immobilized. The nerds used their seal ability to block the delinquents' charm skill, forcing them to flee the camp. However, not long after, the delinquents launched a surprise attack, setting the camp ablaze and injuring others. With everything in ruins, the class rep and others blamed the nerd group for the disaster. Only the vice rep defended them, but as the minority, the nerds decided it was safer to leave. After hearing their story, Haruka admired their bravery and threw them a mushroom feast in celebration. The next morning, Haruka wished the nerds good luck on their journey, but they asked him to join them. Despite wanting to, Haruka, in a heroic manner, declined, explaining he couldn't because of his cursed state. After they left, Haruka decided to visit the other camps, only to find them deserted. As he explored, he sensed footsteps nearby. Activating his optical view ability, he saw the class reps in the distance. When they spotted him, Haruka quickly tried to hide, but they chased after him. Eventually, Haruka stopped when he heard them pleading for his help. The girls explained that they wanted to apologize to the nerd group. Suspicious, Haruka questioned their motives. The girls then began to cry, asking for his help to become stronger. Checking their stats, Haruka was stunned. They were so focused on basic survival, like walking and worrying, that they hadn't leveled up at all. As Haruka considered backing out of the situation, the class vice rep and his crush suddenly appeared. Lost in thought, Haruka hadn't noticed her until she shouted to get his attention. Meanwhile, the delinquent group sat around a campfire, plotting to return to the old camp, their intentions as vile as ever. Thanks for joining me on this adventure. If you enjoyed the journey, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more epic content. Let me know what you think in the comments, and don't miss out on the next video. There's always more fun, surprises, and challenges ahead. Until next time, stay awesome and keep exploring.